It all began on September 29, 1982, in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. A 12-year-old girl, Mary Kellerman, woke up with a sore throat. Like any concerned parent, her father offered her a Tylenol capsule. Mary swallowed it, hoping to feel better soon. But within minutes, she collapsed on the bathroom floor, lifeless. Her parents were left in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Just hours after Mary's death, 27-year-old postal worker Adam Janus was also suffering from a minor cold. He decided to take a couple of Tylenol capsules before heading to work. Moments later, he collapsed in his living room. His family rushed him to the hospital, where doctors declared him dead of a sudden heart attack. But the tragedy did not end there. By the next morning, news of the mysterious deaths began to spread. The medical examiner's office started connecting the dots. With 3 members of the same family dead within hours, they realized there was a common factor: Tylenol. Soon after, the police and public health officials were informed. Helen Jensen, a nurse, suspected something wrong with the capsules and pushed for them to be tested. The results were terrifying. The capsules were laced with potassium cyanide, a lethal poison. Once the police confirmed the cyanide poisoning, a citywide alarm was raised. Authorities drove through Chicago's streets with bullhorns, instructing residents to discard any Tylenol in their homes. Pharmacies were ordered to pull every bottle of Tylenol from the shelves immediately. People were terrified. The popular painkiller had become a weapon of mass murder. Johnson & Johnson, the manufacturer, issued an unprecedented nationwide recall of 31 million bottles, costing the company over $100 million. They offered replacements in tamper-proof packaging, setting a new standard for the industry. With the city in a state of panic, the FBI and local police launched an extensive investigation. They traced the bottles to several stores across the Chicago area, but found no evidence of tampering in the production facilities. This led them to conclude that the perpetrator had manually injected the capsules with cyanide and placed the bottles back on store shelves. It was a calculated, cold-blooded act that could have been committed by anyone. The only lead was a ransom letter sent to Johnson & Johnson by James William Lewis, demanding $1 million to stop the killings. However, there was no physical evidence linking him to the crime scene. He was convicted of extortion, but never charged with the murders. Despite a massive investigation involving the FBI, state police, and countless detectives, the person responsible for the Tylenol murders was never found. The incident led to a complete overhaul of drug packaging safety standards, including the introduction of tamper-evident seals. The unsolved nature of the case has left a lingering fear, a reminder of the horror that can unfold from an everyday product. The identity of the Tylenol killer remains a mystery, buried deep in the shadows of Chicago's darkest nights. Hidden beneath the arid sands of New Mexico lies a dark and chilling secret, an unsolved mystery that has haunted the city of Albuquerque for over a decade. This is the story of the West Mesa Bone Collector, a serial killer who preyed on the most vulnerable and left a trail of terror buried deep in the desert. It was February 2nd, 2009, when a woman taking her dog for a walk stumbled upon something unusual in the barren landscape of the West Mesa. A human bone, bleached white by the sun, was lying exposed on the ground. This discovery would soon reveal one of the most horrific crime scenes in American history. As the police arrived and began their investigation, they realized this was no ordinary discovery. The skeletal remains of 11 women were found buried in shallow graves. The victims, aged 15 to 32, had all disappeared between 2001 and 2005. They were daughters, sisters, and mothers who had vanished without a trace, now lying forgotten in the desert. The identities of these women were uncovered one by one. Michelle Valdez, a a young woman with dreams of a better life; Victoria Chavez, who struggled with addiction; and Silania Edwards, the only African American victim, just 15 years old at the time of her death. All had troubled pasts and were involved in drugs or sex work, making them easy prey for a predator lurking in the shadows. These women lived on the margins of society, often seen as invisible by the world around them. Many struggled with addiction and found themselves working the streets of Albuquerque, hoping to survive another day. The city was a dangerous place, especially for women like them, who disappeared without anyone noticing. As the investigation progressed, two names kept resurfacing: Joseph Blee, a known stalker of sex workers with a history of violent behavior, and Lorenzo Montoya, who had been caught in the act of murdering a sex worker in his home. Both men had disturbing pasts, but the evidence was never enough to convict either of them. The mystery of the bone collector remains unsolved to this day. Today, the West Mesa stands as a silent witness to the horrors that once occurred there. A makeshift memorial of crosses marks the site where the victims were found, a grim reminder of the lives lost and the justice that has yet to be served. Families still wait for answers, haunted by the question, who is the West Mesa bone collector? Despite years of investigation, the case remains cold. Detectives still look over the files, hoping for a break, a clue that could finally solve the mystery. But as time goes on, the chances of finding the killer grow slimmer, and the story of the West Mesa bone collector. In the heart of Austin, Texas, during the sweltering summer nights of 1884, a series of horrifying murders gripped the city in fear. These weren't just any killings. They were gruesome, calculated, and deeply unsettling. The mysterious figure responsible would soon be known as the servant girl annihilator shadow that haunted the darkest alleys and left behind a trail of terror. Narrator: it all began with Molly Smith, a young African-American servant. On a cold night in December, Molly was dragged from her bed, beaten, and savagely murdered with an axe. Her body was found mutilated, with deep gashes across her face. This was only the beginning. As news of Molly's death spread, fear took hold of Austin. The residents, especially the African-American servants, lived in constant terror. Who was this faceless monster that prowled the night? Even the bravest souls dared not venture out after dark. Narrator: within months, more bodies were discovered. Eliza Shelley, another servant girl, was found with her skull crushed. Irene Cross, a mother, was nearly decapitated, her blood staining the wooden floors of her small home. The murders were marked by the same brutality, striking the victims while they slept, attacking them with an axe and dragging them outside. With each new victim, the sense of dread in the community grew. The city's newspapers began referring to the killer as the servant girl annihilator, a fitting name for a person who seemed more like a demon than a man. Despite heightened police presence, the killer continued his spree undeterred. In the desperate search for answers, the police made several arrests, but none of the suspects fit the profile. It was as if the real killer was a phantom, slipping through the fingers of justice each time. Witnesses reported seeing a tall, shadowy figure, but no one could provide a clear description. In the summer of 1885, the killer's most horrific attack occurred. Two prominent women, Susan Hancock and Eula Phillips, were brutally murdered in their own homes on the same night. The sheer audacity and brutality of the attack shocked everyone. But then, as quickly as he had appeared, the annihilator vanished without a trace. To this day, the identity of the servant girl annihilator remains unknown. Some speculate he moved to London and continued his spree as Jack the Ripper. Others believe he was a local who simply stopped or was arrested for another crime. The truth may never be known, But the fear he instilled in Austin's residents has become a dark chapter in the city's history, a chilling reminder of a predator who vanished into the night.